Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 10 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series. Tonight, we are here at the Thompson Speedway for Round 8 of the season, here at one of the few tracks that we are at where we have been here every single season since the league's inception. Season 1 went back to Harry Grindell, Connor Wagner, Jason Gardner, Travis Sukup, Brad Ringer, Benjamin Hurst, Tyler McRae, and Brian Sabelski being the only driver here in the league that has taken home 2 wins here this evening. And of course, we have 4 different winners at this speedway all out on the track here tonight. 12 drivers currently registered for the session. So far, it looks like only 10 of them have turned a qualifying lap. So remains to be seen if we will actually see those other 2 out here on the speedway tonight. The drivers have been given the call to the grid for the 100 lap event here tonight at this 0.62 mile or 1 kilometer long speedway. So, as drivers get themselves all lined up down there, how about we take a look down at our starting lineup for this evening. Starting out on the pole yet again here tonight, that's going to be the number 99 of Mr. Tyler McRae, the driver out of Chesterfield, Virginia, currently leading the championship by 19 points here tonight over Brian Sabelski. Starting his outside in the number 45 machine, that's going to be his teammate of Mr. Travis Sukup, also racing for Droppin' Bombs Racing. Third place can go back to Mr. League admin Jason Gardner, who took home the win at this track back in season number 3 of the league, looking to see if he can't try and make that win number 2 here this season. Back in 4th place, that's going to be another one of those Droppin' Bombs Racing drivers. This one, the driver out of Channahon, Illinois. That's going to be the 10 of Steven Rex. 5th place can go back to Mr. Brian Sabelski in the number 85 McConey Setup Shop entry, with the Justin Wilson Memorial number 14 of Nico Morelli rounding out row number 3. 7th place can go back to the Beefy Motorsports Feeney Call number 38. That's going to be Mr. Brandon Feeney. 8th place can go back to that 78 of Derek Murphy racing for Thompson House of Pizza here this evening, followed by the 00 of Christopher Bryan back in 9th, and Brady Schreckengost in the Iron City Productions number 77, rounding out our top 10 here this evening. 11th, going to be going back to the 17 of Sean Patrick for Droppin' Bombs Racing, and rounding out this 12-car field is going to be the 993 of John Sluter. And just like that, as we take a look around the speedway, it looks like we have all 12 drivers out here on track. All of them have made the call to the grid, and that will officially make our most populated race so far for season number 10. That will be breaking our driver count record only by 1. But that 1 can make a very big difference. 12 late model stocks here on track. 100 laps is the distance. iRacing.com pace car pulling on down to the safety of pit lane. Green flag up in the air. Both lines getting a pretty solid start here. Travis Sukup drifting up the speedway just a little bit. He's going to have to file on back behind his teammate Tyler McRae there for position number 2. This is a speedway where, generally speaking, we see the outside line tend to be one of the more preferred places to be, which is a pretty stark contrast to most of the other tracks on the schedule for season number 10. Most of these speedways that you see, you just lock on down that bottom line and you are good to go for most of the race, but here you generally want to stay a little bit closer to the top. Not quite all the way up. You can see Tyler McRae there running down right in the middle of the speedway. That's actually generally where the place you want to be here. He's holding on to the lead by only call it about 0.3 of a second here, as we have some drivers side by side further back in the back. It's 2 drivers we've been talking about having similar design philosophies in their paint schemes for a while now. If you didn't know any better, you might think they're teammates. It's Brandon Feeney and Brian Sabelski. Sabelski down on the lower line here in the Laconia Setup Shop 85. He's going to fall back a position there. Now 2 spots down from where he's qualified. The only driver on the speedway that has fallen back 2 positions so far here tonight. course, we are only 5 laps into this 100-lap event. We've got a whole host of racing left to go here tonight, but looking around the Speedway, everyone mostly single file now. We actually have a little bit of a battle back here in the back as John Sluter starts to put the pressure down on Christopher Bryan in that 00. Bryan, of course, a rookie here this season in that unsponsored 00 machine. Been kind of up and down the championship and up and down the race results so far this season. Had some good races, has had some races where he's ended up in some pretty unfortunate incidents. Right now, running back in the 10th position. Still a long way to go here tonight. Still plenty of time to make that ground up, or if nothing else, try and hold off John Sluter and Sean Patrick just behind him. Sluter and Patrick both showed up to tonight's event with less than a minute before the green flag flew. So neither of them have any practice under their belts, at least practice here in the official league sanctioned practice session. It's entirely possible they've gotten seat time on their own here outside of the sessions we put on for these drivers, but both of them showed up with less than a minute left to go, so it's not looking like either of them managed to put down qualifying times either, which would be why they are starting back at the back here. But Christopher Bryan, John Sluter, Sean Patrick, actually the closest battle on the Speedway right now, the battle to try and break into the top 10 here this evening. Coming into tonight's event, these drivers all in pretty similar positions to where they are on the track right now in the championship standings. John Sluter rounding out the championship back in the 13th position with 24 points. Then Christopher Bryan's up in 10th with 56 points to his name. And Sean Patrick, I believe, is actually making his first start of the season. I didn't even realize that. I'm so used to seeing Patrick in the Wednesday night league that I broadcasted, it didn't even occur to me that this is his first start here with the ASRC Oval Series here for season number 10. Currently at the tail end of the field, but only 12 laps in the books, so plenty of time for these drivers to get themselves sorted out as Patrick's going to try and make the pass down the low line. Is he going to be able to make it stick? It looks like the answer is going to be no. He's going to fall back just like that in that number 10 machine. But he's still there, only about 0.3 of a second behind Sluter, so he still has the potential to get out of this hole that he has dug for himself. Further up in the field, though, Brandon Feeney is once again finding himself in a scuffle, getting around that 85 of Brian Sabelski as Sabelski goes way up high in turns 3 and 4, and now he's looking to try and put the pressure down on Nico Morelli, see if he can't break his way into a top 5 finish here tonight. Feeney was doing really solid last week at the Martinsville Speedway, but had a little bit of an incident down on pit lane, a little bit of trouble on the strategy call, and ended up coming back in 11th back at Martinsville. So trying to be on a little bit of a redemption arc here this evening. He was also inside the top 5 in the championship standings a couple of weeks ago. Now he finds himself back in 6th, but he's only 4 points behind Steven Rex, up in the 3rd position right now in the championship standings. Of course, we only have 4 weeks, actually call it 3 weeks left to go after tonight's event to determine who our champion is going to be. And of course, that champion not just competing for bragging rights here this evening, they are also competing to take home a custom-made button box made by our friends over at SM Racing. Of course, still got to settle the score here with another, call it about 83 laps to go around this 0.62 mile speedway. Opened up all the way back in the 1940s. Thompson Speedway has a whole host of history here up in Thompson, Connecticut. And it's got a whole host of history here with the league here as well. And Brian Sabelski is actually going to make the move happen down on the low line around Nico Morelli. And Morelli's drifting up high yet again. Schreckengost is going to go down there. Going to be side by side out of the corner. Morelli does have the advantage, but he's not quite clear of that 77 machine. Sure enough, Schreckengost going to pull it alongside once again, but just not the momentum he needs off the corner to make it happen here tonight. That low line, you can get up alongside the driver to your outside in-corner entry and mid-corner, but a lot of these drivers just really struggle to get drive off the corner when they're down on that lower line. And Thompson Speedway is one of the tracks that I hear a lot of controversy about here on the iRacing.com platform. Drivers that compete at this speedway in the real world say that Thompson, in their mind, is probably one of the most unrealistic tracks on the iRacing.com platform in terms of how it drives. Of course, I can't really comment on that. I am certainly not a real-life race car driver, and I've never been to Connecticut, so I can't say one way or another here. But word on the grapevine, Thompson Speedway, the race in there in the real world, looks a little bit different from what we see here on the iRacing platform, as Nico Morelli has to get hard on the brakes there in that 14. He's going to majorly check up to keep from getting to that outside wall. Schreckengoss is going to clear him without much trouble, and now he's side by side with Derek Murphy in that Thompson House of Pizza 78. Murphy's down a position from where he qualified, but he could be fixing that pretty quickly if he manages to get around Morelli here. I said Christopher Bryan right on his tail as well. Murphy and Bryan have had a little bit of history together here in this league. I feel like we find the two of them battling it out time and time again. Sometimes it ends up with an incident, sometimes it doesn't, but regardless, Bryan and Murphy been side by side on the speedway for pretty much all this season, and it only makes sense they're side by side in the championship standings right now. Christopher Bryan 10th position with 56 points, and there's trouble with Christopher Bryan. Caution flag not going to come out though, which is a bit of a surprise. That's John Sluter and Christopher Bryan involved, but we are not getting a caution flag out on the speedway. I guess race control was okay enough with whatever just happened there. Nobody went and blocked up the speedway or anything. Everyone's still rolling. They're both, call it, about 4 seconds back from the rest of the field now. Let's see if we can't take a real quick look back there and see what happened between these two late model drivers. And not quite as far back as we could have been, but it looks like John Sluter might have just gotten a little bit of contact back with the rear quarter panel of the 00, and sure enough, that's going to give a couple of spots to Sean Patrick, and green flag still up in the air. We are still rolling here at the Thompson Speedway, and currently closest battle on the track right now is going to be the battle for the lead now between your top 3 drivers. All 3 of these drivers teammates for Dropping Bombs Racing, with Mr. Sean Patrick back in that 10th position, also competing under the DVR banner. But these 3 drivers, they have been incredibly dominant this season. Tyler McRae, 4 wins so far this season, took home the win most recently back at, I want to say, Langley, back for round number 5. Then Brian Sabelski took home the win on round number 6, as none of the DVR drivers were able to attend. In round 7, Mr. Travis Suka, back in 2nd right now, took home the win last week in Martinsville. So McRae, he has the most wins of this season. He has the control of the championship so far, but it's been a couple of races since he's managed to take home a win, so he's looking to try and break that streak here this season, try and make it 5 wins here tonight. But these 2 drivers had a very dominant run back in season number 9. Last season, McRae took home 6 wins, Sukup took home 6 wins. It was just these 2 drivers winning for the entirety of the season, and McRae managed to take home the championship just barely over Sukup. Sukup, he's got a lot to root for here. He is one of the drivers that has taken home a win at the Speedway. Sukup took home the win back in season number 4. And of course, McRae took home the win at this Speedway last season. So both these drivers have a win to their name here at the Thompson Speedway. Just a question of who might make it win number 2. And of course, can't count out Steven Rex either. Steven has gotten 3 top 2s here so far this season. Tonight could be the night he makes it a win in that number 10. And even further behind, Jason Gardner also has taken home a win at this Speedway. He took it home back in season number 3, back in the street stock. That would have been about around late summer of 2021. So it has been a little while for the driver of that number 93, but plenty of drivers around this field with a whole lot of talent. Plenty of drivers around this field that have taken home wins. Jason Gardner currently in a little bit of a blanket all by himself. A second and a half between himself and Steven Rex. 2 seconds between himself and Feeney behind him. But speaking of Feeney just behind him, he is battling it out with Brian Sabelski. Sabelski, another driver here with the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series that has taken home a win at the Thompson Speedway. And surprisingly, Sabelski didn't even get that win until season number 8. Sabelski, 4-time champion here with this league. And he didn't even take home he didn't take home a win here at Thompson until season number 8. But he's currently running back in the 6th position. He's on the outside looking in, trying to get into the top 5 here. Has to find a way around our Canadian driver of Mr. Brandon Feeney here in that bright blue Feeney call number 38 podcast that he has been working on recently, and actually has uploaded the first couple of episodes of just recently on his YouTube channel. Been doing some interviews with some drivers at his local short track, doing some talks about what goes on in the life of a short track driver up in Canada. Believe it or not, they do this whole short track thing up there just as much as we do it down here in the States, and Feeney is a driver that does a little bit of competition in real life. You can actually see a photo of his real-world car. That's him taking home the checkered flag. I believe that was in his street stock, but I could be mistaken on that. But a driver hailing out of Canada, he's inside the top 5, trying his best to hold on here and keep from falling out of it. But Brian Sabelski is not going to be making that easy for him. A little bit of trouble further back as Derek Murphy gets up into the outside wall there. That's going to allow Sean Patrick to clear him. Patrick now up 3 positions from where he qualified. Just a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall, and that's all it took to move that 78 back a spot. Just a little bit of a mistake to kill all of that momentum. But here at Thompson, I feel like this is a track where a lot of these drivers have some difficulty on corner exit, and I say that, and Murphy has some trouble on corner entry. Murphy hard into the inside wall there. That's going to lose him some time. Just like that, Murphy now a second and a half behind Sean Patrick. All it takes is a little bit of a scrape against that outside wall to lose all of your momentum here. In this speedway, it looks really wide. But at the same time, if you're not on that optimal line, it just becomes really uncomfortable to drive. As another driver into the outside wall. That's Nico Morelli scraping up against the outside wall, coming out of turn number 2. That's going to cost him the position to Christopher Bryan, and John Sluter is right there as well, trying to capitalize on it as well. Side by side down into turns 1 and 2, and it looks like Sluter's going to have the advantage. Morelli's going to lift off and let that 993 machine by. He does not want to deal with that anymore, but is he going to try for the crossover? Not quite, and I just saw some sparks come out from under the bottom of that 14, so he might be bottoming out in the corners here, which is not exactly what you want to be doing. Not this speedway, not at any speedway. That's just some extra drag that's going to slow you down even further. Morelli already getting dangerously close to being a full second behind the rest of the field. Further up ahead, though, Schreckengost is finding himself as the next driver under pressure from Sean Patrick. Patrick started this race back in the last position, and now he's up to 8th, looking to try and get into 7th. And it almost looked like he might have made contact with Schreckengost there, but if he did, it was really light. And just like that, both of them going to scrape the outside wall as well. Maybe putting a little bit of the commentator's curse on these drivers. I just talked about how much these drivers tend to struggle with scraping the outside wall here at Thompson, and both of them do it coming out of turn number 4. We're going to try it again, though. This time by, neither driver makes contact with the outside wall. Always great to see. But Patrick, he's up 3 positions. He's looking to try and make it 4. And soon he could be finding himself battling it out with Brian Sabelski. Especially if we end up getting a caution later on in this race as we get closer to crossing the halfway point. Soon we will see drivers having to pit for fuel. This is one of the speedways where it is definitely not feasible for these drivers to try and fuel save all the way to the end. It's just too big of a speedway, and considering we're halfway through with no cautions, I don't think the chances of being able to fuel save are very good. Just like that, though, speaking of drivers needing to pit for fuel, Brian Sabelski is going to be the first driver to make the call on down to pit lane. And it looks like he is going to be taking tires as well under that 85. He wants this to be his one and only stop. 13.33 seconds in his pit stall. 38.5 seconds down on pit lane itself. So he's going to be the first driver to take fuel here tonight. Everyone else still has to come down at some point. And right now, still the closest battle on the speedway. This battle between Brady Schreckengost and Sean Patrick, battling it out side by side for 6th. And they're going to be side by side across the line. Patrick is going to be scored as the leader of this battle. Will he be able to clear Schreckengost? Not quite. Schreckengost side by side again, but he scrapes the outside wall, and they're going to make contact there. Coming through turns 3 and 4, Schreckengost going to lift off a little bit, not wanting to spin that drop-in bomb 17. And just like that, Schreckengost going to start losing ground just a little bit here in this battle. Everyone else around the speedway spread out just a little bit. Nico Morelli has officially gone a lap down, and he has not come down to pit lane yet, so Morelli might have some damage on that number 14 from those scrapes we saw against the outside wall, though. That said, Brian Sabelski, our first driver to come down pit lane, our only driver to come down to pit lane so far on those 2 new outside right side tires, just set the fastest lap of the race for any driver with a 20.13, which is not even the fastest time we've seen in practice. We saw a driver, I believe that was Tyler McRae, break into the 19.96 territory in practice. So far this race, nobody has managed to break through the 20-second mark. Derek Murphy going to be the next driver to elect to come on down to pit lane here in that number 78 Thompson House of Pizza entry. What's the call going to be for this driver? Will he be taking 2, maybe even taking 4? Definitely at least 2 is going to be the call for Derek Murphy. And 2 is going to be the call for Murphy. Schreckengost is going to be the next on driver coming down to pit lane here. Schreckengost was here last week, and I think he was one of the drivers that actually elected to take 4 tires last week. We actually had a little bit of a discussion about that in the post race on what strategies seem to work, what strategies seem not to, but regardless, Schreckengost is committing to the bit. He's going to be trying to take 4 tires again, and that is going to put him 2 laps down. 2 laps down for the driver of that 77 Iron City Productions entry. That's going to be hard to make back. But who knows? Maybe those 2 extra tires could be the deciding factor here for the driver of the number 77. Jason Gardner also making his way on down pit lane. Looks like most of these drivers are about ready to make their stops happen. They've gotten impatient. They're tired of waiting for a caution. They're just going to come on down now, and oh no. Jason Gardner looks like he overdrove his pit box. He had to back up a couple of inches there. That's going to cost him some time down here on pit lane, but really fast stop. Really fast stop for the driver of the 93. That's the fastest 2-tire stop we've seen so far here tonight at a 12.47. My only guess here is that maybe Jason shorted himself on fuel a little bit to make up for messing up his pit entry. Sean Patrick now going to be scored as our race leader as Travis Sukup and Tyler McRae make their pit stops here. What's the call going to be for these 2 drivers? Definitely going to be 2. I would imagine neither of them are going to take 4 here. Both of them coming back out and almost going to get beat off pit lane by Nico Morelli. Oh, in trouble. That's not quite how you exit pit lane, Mr. McRae, but I mean, it works. I don't know if race control is going to hit him with a penalty for that, but just that little bit of slip up cost him a little bit of ground here on the speedway. That cycled him back to the 4th position. Of course, that will move him up to 3rd once Sean Patrick comes down pit lane, which he is doing right now. Patrick is the last driver on the speedway that has not pit. And just like that, he will be coming down this time by. So that should be the end of the pit cycle for all of these late model stock car drivers, unless somebody realizes that they made an oopsie somewhere. As we see John Sluter pulling out of pit lane there. Sean Patrick also going to be taking 2 tires. Will we see him join the club and try and take 4? The answer is going to be no. Sean Patrick on his way out of pit lane. And that still leaves us with the battle for the lead. 0.2 of a second between these 2 late model drivers, and we have trouble. Sean Patrick having a bit of a repeat of Tyler McRae's mishap on pit exit. Just a little bit too fast coming out of that sharp corner. I think that corner really catches a lot of these drivers off guard, especially when they have brand new Hoosier tires put on them. And Sean Patrick's actually going to come back down pit lane. Patrick might have gotten a penalty for that pit exit there. Trouble as well as Tyler McRae is down in the grass. He's going to bring it to a stop and immediately take the tow to pit lane, and McRae has just retired from the race. All right, fascinating. Well, I didn't have Tyler McRae retiring on my bingo card here this evening. Let's see if we can't take a look back and see what happened to Tyler. He was leading this race up until just then. That's not quite what we want to be. Let's pull it back a little bit further here, see if we can't see what happened to Tyler. Driver out of Chesterfield, Virginia, and it looks like he just pulled it into the grass and had to leave the session. So hopefully everything is good with the driver out of Chesterfield, Virginia, because that was a very abrupt stop. That was not a self-spin or an incident or anything like that. That looked like very deliberately pulling off the track and closing the iRacing.com simulator. So that is going to leave his teammate of Travis Sukup as our race leader, 0.3 of a second back to his teammate of Steven Rex, who is trying to get a win here, trying to not have this be 2nd place finish number 4 in that number 10 Dropping Bombs race and entry. Further back though, 2 drivers that have been battling it out against each other since season 1. It's going to be Jason Gardner and Brian Sabelski, nose to tail for 3rd place here, the final podium position. Of course, Jason is on 10-lap newer tires than Sabelski is, so that could play a little bit of a factor here. 10-lap newer tires, and I think Jason might have a little bit less fuel in that number 93 machine, because I'm looking at their pit stop times, and Jason was 0.9 of a second faster on pit lane than Sabelski was. That's starting to be enough of a time difference to leave the random variation that is pit crew time and more seem like they had different work done to their late models. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. These 2 drivers currently the closest battle on the speedway. Jason Gardner is right there behind Sabelski, but not quite close enough to make contact. All it takes is a little bit of a nudge to get him up the speedway, and that's all it'll take to get around him. Just a very big matter of what if here. These 2 drivers are a whole 5 seconds back from our race leaders though, so they have a lot of ground they need to make up in these next 25 laps if they want to try and contest for the win. Travis Sukup holding on to the lead. Last time by was a 20.29, which was the fastest lap on the speedway last time by. Sabelski and Gardner coming up on lap traffic though. That is going to be Brandon Feeney and then Nico Morelli. Feeney's going to pull it up high and get out of their way. Then that's going to leave Morelli up in front of them. Morelli currently being scored 3 laps down after having a little bit of trouble earlier on in tonight's race. Let's see if we can't take a look on board with Morelli, see what he has coming up behind him. Jason Gardner, Brian Sabelski, 3rd and 4th place drivers come up behind him. At least he doesn't have to worry about the race leader for a little while. Sukup, Steven Rex, both about halfway down turn 2 right now. And actually, it doesn't look like Sabelski or Gardner are catching him as fast as I thought they would. Maybe just a little bit busy being held up with each other. There's a battle happening here on the speedway, though. Or maybe not so much. Feeney's going to lose a couple positions as he elects to pull it on down pit lane again in that Feeney call 38. He already made his stop back on lap 61, so I'm not sure what's going on with that Feeney call number 38, but we saw the same thing last week where he had to make a second stop back in Martinsville, even though it should be a one-stop race, so something not handling the way that 38 wants it to be. He's going to be putting 4 new tires on it. I mean, I'm not in a position to comment on the pit strategy, so whatever works, works. That's going to move Feeney back to the 10th position. Going to be scored, it looks like, on the same lap as Nico Morelli and Sean Patrick. So if nothing else, those 4 tires could get him around Nico Morelli. A little bit further up in the field, though, these 2 drivers are still laps down, but they are battling for position. This is Brady Schreckengoss with John Sluter trailing just behind him in that Gatorade 993 entry. Battling it out for the 7th position here with 19 laps to go. Schreckengoss made the pass on him without a whole lot to worry about here tonight. Looking at the lap times last time by, Schreckengoss was about 15 hundredths faster than Sluter. Let's see what the updated timing is. This time by about... Actually, this time by, Sluter was actually faster by the same amount. So, Sluter still is in this battle with Schreckengoss. It's just a matter of will he be able to catch up in these next 17 laps and make the pass happen. Sluter is also on newer tires than Schreckengoss, so that is something to keep in mind, that it is only a 7-lap difference between the 2 of them, but every lap can sometimes count on these Hoosier tires. Gonna be 15 laps left to go as Sukup crosses the line this time by. He's holding on to lead by a fairly comfortable margin. As we zoom it out just a little bit, that red car, that red number 10 of Steven Rex is the driver in the 2nd position. Both of them have now 7 seconds to play with between themselves and Brian Sabelski and Jason Gardner, and those are the last 2 drivers on the lead lap here. So as long as neither Sukup or Rex makes a mistake, they should be pretty comfortably good to go here. Of course, we have seen stranger things happen here in the ASRC Oval Series, but I'm not going to try and jinx any of these drivers. Right now, Sukup coming up on his teammate of Sean Patrick in that 17. Patrick currently being scored 3 laps down. I would imagine Patrick is going to just get out of the way and call it an evening. Maybe not, though. We'll just have to see how it plays out, but these drivers, they are all driving for the same organization here, Bombs Racing. That said, it's very rare that we see any sort of team orders actually come through with these drivers. And further back in the field, Jason Gardner has actually closed the gap to that 85 of Brian Sabelski, and just behind them is the 38 of Brandon Feeney. Feeney has newer tires than both of these drivers. He is a couple laps down, but I am curious to see if Feeney is going to battle with them, just because Feeney is so much faster right now. And disregard that. Caution flag out on the speedway. Brian Sabelski went around, and we now find ourselves in a very interesting situation, because if y'all remember, race fans, this is the exact lap that the caution flag came out last week at the Martinsville Speedway. So as we get everyone lined up and ready to go, let's take a look back, see what happened to the driver of the 85 machine. Battling side by side for third with that 93 of Jason Gardner. Side by side coming across the front stretch. Beanie just behind in that 38. They go into turn number 1. And oh, just a little bit of contact. It looked like that 93 might have just gone in a little bit hotter than he intended to. And that was enough to nudge into the right rear, or excuse me, left rear of Brian Sabelski, and almost spun around. Sure enough, just that tiny little bit of a nudge was all it took. Let's take a ride on board with Jason Gardner here, see what he saw coming into this incident. Battling it out with 10 to go. Going down into turn number 1, both drivers really pushing their cars with everything they got. He tries to get to rotate, but just a little bit too much momentum going into turn 1 there. Just like that, though, we're getting drivers sort of back out where they need to be. Travis Sukup, Steven Rex, still your two front runners, Jason Gardner and Brian Sabelski. Brian is going to stay on the lead lap, it looks like, so once we get to 1 to go, he should be able to go around all of the lapped cars here. Christopher Bryan's going to elect to pull it on down to pit lane, though, in that 00. This will be Brian's second stop here tonight, so he might have shorted himself a little bit on fuel, or maybe just something under the hood not handling the way he wants it to be, but he's going to pull it on down to pit lane. Mind you, he is on the same lap as John Sluter, Brady Schreckengrost, and Derek Murphy here. And Christopher Bryan is putting on left side tires. Between you and me, race fans, left side tires generally has not been the most favorable call for these late model drivers, but I respect the grind. You got 10 laps left to go. You need to make anything happen here to try and gain even a couple of tenths can make all the difference. But we've even seen Travis Sukup at one time try the left side tire strategy, and it didn't quite work out for him in that dropping bombs 45. So we'll have to see how it plays out for Mr. Bryan. He's currently being scored back into the 8th position right now. That said, lights are off on the iRacing.com pace truck, so we will be going green flag racing next time by. Going to be 10 to go when we cross the line. Steven Rex, Travis Sukup, Jason Gardner, Brian Sabelski, your top 4, and they are the only 4 on the lead lap right now. Green flag up in the air, and it looks like Steven Rex might have got caught sleeping there. Steven Rex is going to drift up high just a little bit. Is Gardner going to be able to make the pass? Not quite, but he is going to be able to at least keep his nose there. Going down into turns 3 and 4. Definitely not the restart that Rex was looking for. Thankfully, everyone was spread out enough to not really risk checking up the field there, but Rex almost got caught with his pants down. Caution flag out on the speedway, and that was quite the jump by Christopher Bryan. No one told me we installed jumps here at Thompson Speedway. Can't say that was in my track notes. That said, word from race control is the caution came out for Derek Murphy, so we'll have to take a look back here and see if we can't break down what exactly happened to the driver of the number 78, because it sounded like that's where the caution started. So taking a look back here, Derek Murphy side by side with Sean Patrick, and oh, contact with the 993, almost getting sent upside down, and Christopher Bryan has to swerve to avoid. Just a little bit of trouble on the restart there. Let's take another look back at that. I think we gotta zoom this one out just so we can really appreciate the jump that Christopher Bryan hit there. Just a little bit of contact with John Fluter was enough to get him around. Christopher Bryan tries to take evasive action, and there's a jump there. Christopher, not doing his suspensions any favors there. take one more look back at this. Let's focus the camera on Christopher Bryan here. I know he wasn't involved in this incident, but I think we got to take a moment to appreciate that jump. It's not very often we get to see a late model stock car go airborne. But yeah, looks like the transition between the asphalt and the grass there maybe not as smooth as we thought it was. So only one lap completed under that green flag stint. That will be leaving us with 9 to go. Travis Sukup, Steven Rex, Jason Gardner, Brian Sabelski, still your 4 front runners here. Derek Murphy is going to have to make a pit stop down on pit road, and he spent a whole minute and 11 down there on pit lane. So it looks like Murphy had some damage he had to get repaired there. Stacking them up again, 2 by 2. Lights are still on the iRacing.com pace truck, so we are going to have another lap under caution. Of course, caution laps do not count here in the ASRC Oval Series, so not a whole lot to worry about there. I mean, it looks like everyone is mostly in the right order, so I'm not entirely sure what we are having to extend the caution for, but hey, race fans, while we got a minute, how about check out our friends on over at SM Racing Products over on Facebook. The folks putting on the sponsorship for this league, putting up the grand prize for the champion of the custom-made button box. They're just 2 racers looking to make some quality and aesthetically pleasing products at an economical price. They were telling me they were looking for some sim racing gear, couldn't find what they were looking for, so they just decided to make it themselves, and now here they are, SM Racing Products. Big thank you to them for coming on board here with the ASRC Oval Series. Lights are out on the iRacing.com pace car, and it looks like we're going to be doing a single file restart here. Green flag up in the air once again, and Brian Zabelski already nose to tail with Jason Gardner. There was a bit of contact there between these 2 late model stock car drivers, battling it out for the 3rd position. Sabelski is going to fall on back just a little bit, and that's going to leave the main battle going on up here, the battle for the lead between Travis Sukup and Steven Rex. 2/10 second between these 2 drivers, but it could be anyone's game in these top 4 here. And Steven Rex actually just set the fastest lap of the race with a 20.04, so still not quite breaking. Oh, well, I say that. Travis Sukup has officially broken the 20-second range. He just set down a 19.99. That is the first lap we have seen all race that has broken the 20-second mark. So Travis Sukup, he's setting his fastest laps here with only 5 to go. Big high five up in the air. Not quite as fast that time by. Both Sukup and Rex set a 20.05. Jason Gardner a 20.06. With 5 laps left to go here, I think someone is going to need a little bit of a miracle to catch up to Mr. Sukup here. I mean, Steven Rex is there. And he was faster the last time by 3 thousandths of a second. So it's still possible. We can't discount that number 10 quite yet here. And Jason Gardner is actually still within a second as well. I said last time by, Jason Gardner was a 10th slower than Sukup or Rex. Sabelski 2 tenths slower than Gardner was. So Sabelski, those 10 lap older tires than anyone else on the field, seems to be biting him just a little bit. And John Sluter's going to be pulling it on down to pit lane. There was a battle going on between himself and Derek Murphy, and John Sluter looks like he might be retiring from tonight's event, so that would make the 2nd driver to have packed it on up and head home and gotten ready for next week's race. That said, white flag up in the air one more time around the speedway. Steven Rex is going to try the desperation move. It's not quite going to work. I don't think he's going to get enough of a run to make it happen here again. Heading down to turns 3 and 4. He's going to try it. Will it be enough? No, it will not. Travis Sukup going to cross the line and take his third win this season with the ASRC Oval Series. Steven Rex just behind him. Jason Gardner rounding out the podium here tonight. Brian Sabelski and Brady Schreckengost rounding out your top 5 here this evening. What an evening it has been here at the Thompson Speedway. Always leaves this place with stories for these drivers to tell. And of course, got to give Mr. Sukup just a moment to burn it down. Got a win last week at Martinsville. Did it again here at the Thompson Speedway. And that might just be enough to move him up in front of Brian Sabelski in the championship standings. That said, race fans, don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a moment with some words from your top 3 finishers here tonight. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to season number 10 of the Attrition Sim Race Oval Series. Oh man, that race took too much out of me, race fans. Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing. You got another win to your name, Mr. Sukup. Took it home last week at Martinsville. Took it home tonight at another long and narrow track here at the Thompson Speedway. How are you feeling with another win to your name here tonight?
Good, but I think Tyler had me covered tonight, but I guess it worked out for me.
Yeah, hopefully everything is all right with Tyler. It seems like he left really abruptly here this evening. I was a little caught off guard with that, but hopefully everything is good. And one way or another, you managed to take home the win here tonight. That should, I think, move you in front of Brian Sabelski in the championship and put you back in second place heading on into Lanier next week. Is Lanier a track you got any particular opinions about?
It's a fun track. I think we'll all be pretty even there. It should be a good one.
Yeah, and I reckon having fun is half the battle. If you're having a good time, that basically means you're guaranteed to win. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the validity of my sources on that, but I'm excited for next week. Lanier is a track that has a lot of history here with the league, and I think it's bound to be a pretty fun race. That said, when that last caution came out, were you worried at all that Steven might be able to get around you here tonight?
Oh yeah, Steve likes to wait. He likes to wait to the end, so I knew he was going to be pretty quick. And I think he could have if he wanted to hit me pretty good.
Well, definitely one heck of a finish and another 1-2 finish for Dropping Bombs Racing drivers. So definitely good work for all of y'all. Before I send you out for the evening here, let you get ready for Lanier next week. Who you want to thank for getting that number 45 machine up in victory lane?
Oh, like always with DBR, we have a good time doing it. We really do. Laugh and make fun of each other the whole time. And then the league's a lot of fun. Mondays are a good time to run. I just like to see them get more cars.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Lanier.
All right, thanks for what you do.
And finishing back in position number 2, also for the Dropping Bombs Racing team, Mr. Steven Rex. Congratulations, you're now at 4 second place finishes here this season. What do you think you might have had to have done different on that last restart to make it your first win here tonight?
I don't know. I did all I could. It was a battle of track position. It seems, however we started the race is kind of, how we ended. Same with like going into pit road. You go in, if you can't come out, it was ahead of the other guy. It was just hard to pass. We were so even. We This guy's Mike, Tyler. We all race together all the time, so we know what each other does, and it's comical at times, and we you can't put a move on each other. It's too hard when the cars are this even.
Yeah, definitely. You both were setting some really similar lap times in those final couple of laps. And actually, I believe with about five to go, Mike set his fastest lap of the race with the only lap this race that broke the 20-second mark. So definitely some stiff competition here this evening.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was real tight. I was worried the guys behind us when that caution came out with like 12 or so to go. Uh, me and Mike had about a 7.5 second lead on them. I thought they were gonna have tons of tires left to get around us, but man, the cold tires, after running for a few laps under caution, they actually brought more speed on 30 lap old tires, which was amazing. So and it lasted. That was a more crazy thing. So we'll take it.
Yeah, if I'm looking at things right, that should move you up to fourth in the championship standings as Garrett was not able to attend tonight. Of course, depends on how all the drop weeks cycle in here, but next week, heading to a very different track to this one. We're heading on over to Lanier. What do you think your odds are of taking home a win at that track?
Oh yeah, I like Lanier. Anything's possible. All the DBR guys will run. We'll run competitive. We'll run hard, and we'll make it a good time. I'd like to see some more cars. I'd love to see like 20 out here at a track like Lanier. Get a lot of racing.
Yeah, we can always hope. Who knows what the future might bring, but for now, congratulations on another podium finish to your name. Who do you want to thank for getting that number 10 machine up here in the booth tonight?
Yeah, all the guys at DBR, Mike, Tyler, Sean. It's a good time racing together. We enjoy it. Um, the league itself, everybody that makes sure this happens is great, and you for hosting. Or broadcasting. I appreciate it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out tonight, and I look forward to seeing you and the rest of the DBR gang at Lanier next week.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
And finally, rounding out our podium here tonight, Mr. Jason Gardner. It's been a little while since we've had you up here in the booth. This is the track that you took home a win at a long time ago, but you managed to get a podium here tonight. How'd you manage to make it happen?
Tell you, it's not easy. This track is very, very rough, very abrasive, and pretty much eats up these right front tires. But oddly enough, these cars seem to lose almost no speed on worn tires, especially after they cool down. But yeah,
Yeah, all of y'all were having some really solid runs here this evening, especially in the closing laps tonight. What do you think you might have had to have done different to maybe get around Steven Rex or even possibly contest for the win here tonight?
uh, to be honest, if I had to do anything better, it would have been passing Brian because uh, I did not I did not mean to rate. Yeah, I raced Brian just a little too hard, and that's definitely, you know, multi-time champion in the Oval Series. That is not how I really wanted to pass him. But yeah, for the top two, yeah, I was giving it 110%. There was no way I would have been able to pass him, especially on a track like this.
Yeah, well, I reckon that short track racing, there's always bound to be a little bit of contact. Next week's, though, brand new week heading on over to the Lanier Raceway. How you feel heading into a much shorter track than this one?
I feel a little bit confident I'm going to take this top three and hopefully use that momentum to give me another top three next week.
Well, I like the enthusiasm. Coming into the night, you were eighth in the championship standings, and I think I think that with how everyone finished, you might be moving up a spot over Nico Morelli, so that might bump you up into 7th. And now, with 3 weeks left to go, you are on the outside, potentially looking into a top 5 in the championship here this season. So, whole lot to be looking forward to.
Yeah, with how the season's been, I'll definitely take a top 5 in the championship. That would definitely be a win for me.
Yeah, well, for now, I'll let you celebrate your podium and start getting ready for Lanier next week. But before you head out, who do you want to thank for getting that number 93 up here in the booth tonight?
First and foremost, I'd like to thank SM Racing, who are sponsoring this series. I also want to thank you for broadcasting the series. And I actually want to thank everybody who's been participating in the series this year. If it ain't for them, this series would not exist. And I also like to thank everybody on Twitch who's actually watching right now. Especially give a shout out to Val. How do you pronounce that name? Valnair.
Close enough. You got
Yeah,
the spirits there.
Because I know he's been cheering for me all year.
Yeah,
or off season.
I think everyone out here in this league has at least somebody rooting for him, and it's always great to see fans picking their favorites, having someone to root for, and having the energy to see someone succeed. But for now, thank you for coming out here tonight and putting on the league, Jason. I look forward to seeing you next week at Lanier.
I look forward to seeing you next week.
Alrighty, race fans, you heard it here first. Your top 3 finishers here this evening: Travis Sukup, Steven Rex, Jason Gardner. Following them back in the 4th position, that's going to be Mr. Brian Sabelski, the last driver on the lead lap here tonight. That's going to be Brady Schreckengost rounding out your top 5. Christopher Bryan, Derek Murphy, Brandon Feeney, Nico Morelli, Sean Patrick rounding out the top 10. John Sluter back in 11th in that 993 entry. And finally, rounding out the field here tonight, the driver that, if nothing else, has the honors of saying the first driver to finish in 12th place so far this season. That's going to be our championship leader of Mr. Tyler McRae. Of course, that's just about all we got here from the Thompson Speedway here tonight. Big thank you from me up here in the broadcast booth. A thank you from all of our friends over at SM Racing and everyone who comes out and competes in the ASRC Oval Series, for everyone coming out and showing their support here tonight. And we all look forward to seeing you same day, same time next week for round 9 of the season at the Lanier International Raceway. Thank you all for coming out, race fans, and have a good evening.